Then we have 1 minute to give people time to join the session. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you're dialing in, joining us from today. This is the 5th session as part of the Purple Tuesday 2022 Global Virtual Conference. And this session, we will be focusing on how we support customers with hidden disabilities. So before we get started, let's take on some housekeeping. So this session will be recorded and shared with you afterwards. Captions are enabled, so please do enable them in the Zoom function and the Zoom tab. And we really want to make this as an interactive and engaging session as possible. So please do submit your questions that you have for the panel or around the topic area in the Q&A section or the chat box, and we will pick up as many as we possibly can when it comes to the end of the session. I want to say a huge thank you to our global headline partner eBay, to our global sector partners Standard Chartered Bank, SHL and Hidden Disability Sunflower, and to our national partners who represent such a diverse range of different industries across the US, the UK and the UAE, who without their support and their contributions to today's session, the conference wouldn't have been able to take place. So we're looking at hidden disabilities in this session. So what do we mean? What is a hidden disability? And rather than me explain it, I think there is a brilliant video that has been created by our partner, Hidden Disabilities, that says everything that it needs to do. So can we play the video, please?
Endometriosis is a condition that affects 1 in 10 women.
Since the cancer operation, I have a syndrome called LARS.
Generalized anxiety disorder, depression, eating disorder, traits of PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, and then she's since developed and been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome.
I got post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD as it's known. I've also got a mild traumatic brain injury, so I suffer with like short and long-term memory loss there. I've got dyscalculia, which is like a form of dyslexia, but with numbers, which is acquired because of the bump on the head.
I get varying degrees of vertigo, so I can have clusters of vertigo attacks, which means that for weeks on end I can have anything from 1 to 3 attacks of vertigo a day.
I was 30, so yeah, I was pretty young to have bowel cancer.
High blood pressure and something called borderline left ventricular hypertrophy. He also has other conditions, so he's autistic, and he was diagnosed with autism when he was 2. He has ADHD, which he was diagnosed with when he was 6, and more recently he was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome.
Hi, I'm Lucy, I'm 39 and I live with Parkinson's.
My name's Matthew, I'm 37 years old and I'm autistic.
So I really don't think we can sum up any better as to what we mean by a hidden disability. You know, just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. So I'm delighted now to introduce our panelists today. From the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme, we have Paul White, who is founder and CEO. From Recite Me, an accessibility toolbar, we have Darren Hall, who is their Chief Revenue Officer. Joining us from Eastlight Community Homes, we have Hugo Drummond, who is Engagement, Diversity and Inclusion Manager. And all the way from Minnesota, St. Cloud State University, we have Dr. Amy Knopf and Kathy Johnson, who are the directors of the Centre of International Disability Advocacy and Diplomacy. And also joining us today, we have Maddie White and Michelle Martin, who are very well placed to be able to talk about this from the lived experience and as our Purple Tuesday ambassadors. So I'm going to now come to you, Paul, first to get the conversation started and to kick off. Can you tell us a little bit more about, what was behind the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Lanyards development, and how have you actually gone about bringing it to the international stage and the international success that it has now become?
So, hi Charlene. The sunflower is a simple tool that people with non-visible disabilities can wear to demonstrate that they have a hidden condition. People choose to wear the sunflower to demonstrate this, that they have a hidden disability, and it enables businesses, organisations, the general public, whoever, to be able to recognise that person has a condition and to give that person the support, time, care, patience or understanding that they may need. So the sunflower was created in 2016 at Gatwick Airport, when the airport said to me and my team, whilst we can recognise when people have a visible disability, what about all these people's disabilities that are not visible? So we came up with the sunflower as an emblem, as a design, for a way for people to be able to demonstrate they have a condition. And it was a huge success. It was very successful through the airport originally. It then moved to Heathrow Airport, and then it kind of got shared wider than that. It grew organically, really across all of the UK, and now it's grown much further. So the sunflower is really, so it has one simple purpose. It's a tool to be able to demonstrate that that a person's disability isn't visible. But the truth is, it is so much more than that. It's really helped to demonstrate that the sheer scale of non-visible disabilities in society. The statistic that still blows me away is 1 in 5 of us have some form of disability, and 80% of these disabilities are not visible. So just in the UK, that's over 10 million people. The sunflower has allowed people to be more independent, knowing that some of the barriers that they face are going to be removed. It's certainly allowed people to travel further. And further than that, it's also enabled businesses to use the sunflower as a stepping stone into becoming more disability confident. And it's helped to remove a lot of those biases around disability within the workplace. And it's certainly helped to for businesses to start to begin to create a culture within the organisation that supports disabled people. And it also enables people to have that confidence to disclose. Now, I heard Mike talking earlier about kind of disclosure bit and the culture of disability coming from the top down and the bottom up. And the sunflower really is part of that. And it really helps to enable people to be able to demonstrate that condition. So as an organisation, we were very successful in the UK. Naturally, we wanted to use that success and use that momentum globally. And a lot of the organisations that we work with are actual global organisations, and they also wanted to use the success. So we originally grew. We've grown very well through the airports, certainly through travel, and the sunflower now is directly represented in 10 countries globally. But we've also got a global reach with organisations representing the sunflower in 24 countries. And we're now represented in 177 global airports. So the appetite for the sunflower is there. It's been an amazing journey for me and my team, and the success of the sunflower globally really is our goal.
No, that is absolutely amazing, to be in so many airports in so many countries across the world. And I think it just really, sums it up. It's just a really simple way of being able to remove that awkwardness of being able to open up that dialogue that those individuals maybe do not want to share straight away every time they go and they're having those interactions. It's just a really subtle way of being able to say, I have an additional need, and just maybe give me a little bit more time. So I think it's just been, you know, an amazing success, and we're delighted to be continuing to work with you. And we wish you every continued success in taking it to even more countries worldwide. Thanks, Paul. Now I want to introduce to the conversation Darren from Recite Me. Hi, Darren.
Hi, Charlene. How are you?
Yeah, no, we're good. And you know, Recite Me is an assistive technology. It's a toolbar to enable.
Correct.
So, what led to the idea of Recite Me being born?
It was Ross Linnett, our CEO's lived experience, that led to the origin story of Recite Me, the toolbar. He tells the story better than me, so I'll do my best. Ross found out quite late on at university that he was dyslexic, and like many in that position, he was given some money and pointed in the direction of some assistive technology he could grab hold of. This technology needed to be installed on his desktop computer at the time. And when he was working from that device, he was supported to some degree. But as the world of work became more remote, more mobile, he felt tethered to this one device. And around the same sort of time, the Equality Act was shining a light on reasonable adjustment, and businesses making those reasonable adjustments to buildings and spaces to make them more inclusive. And Ross had the realization that in the physical world, the responsibility was put on the business to make those accommodations, to make that space more inclusive. But in the digital world, it felt like we were still far behind, putting the onus on the person, on the individual. Like any good entrepreneur, he had an idea, and that idea was our assistive technology, a toolbar that provides features like text-to-speech and real-time translations, that sits on a website and helps people really interact and digest content in a way that works best for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, you know, given the focus on hidden disabilities today, can you give us maybe the top 3 tips for creating greater accessibility for those who are joining us?
Well, I felt a great burden of responsibility on the question asked. And forgive me, my imposter syndrome is sitting on my shoulder a little bit. My experience is in building software businesses within an e-commerce background. And so I've tried to bring a little bit of what I have in my toolbox to bear. So the first thing that I think is really relevant, and I hope everyone agrees, is that when talking about hidden disabilities, it's the word hidden that sort of strikes me is really drawing a parallel with the online journey. Everyone online is unseen. Everyone that turns up to your website, unless you've got some pretty scary spyware, it's unseen. And so that user experience is where I think the first tip is to start. So if I was to try and be concise, which isn't my strong suit, I'd say that the first tip is to think about investing in greater accessibility. It's actually just investing in great user experience, not to be afraid of embracing the accessibility journey as being one that it benefits all. And so because my background's in e-commerce software, I can speak passionately about all of the e-commerce professionals, customer experience professionals who sweat the detail, who have verve and passion for driving great results through their online stores and digital journeys. But when it comes to talking about that same verve and passion for making those online places accessible, it seems to diminish. I find that really interesting and somewhat disappointing, because the first tip being to focus on greater accessibility, being great user experience, just means looking at your online channels, looking at your customer journeys, those purposes of each page, of each stage of the journey, and really trying to consider where the friction may lie in those unseen challenges. And obviously everyone's mind immediately would go to a transactional website and trying to generate more revenue. But I think it's so much more basic than that and more crucial than that. Think about all of the all of the people that access your brand online and all of the different journeys they might want to perform. One of the most obvious ones is the contact us page, reaching out for support or interaction. How obfuscated we can make that journey, how many layers and how much information we can put in that journey. So simply removing friction and embracing greater accessibility as being part of good UX is my first tip, and hopefully that would resonate with many on the call. Tip 2, if the first one was to think, the next one is to act and remove that friction. So some really basic but really solid principles of accessibility. Trying not to use long copy, trying not to use 1,000 words when a picture or a video will do the same. At the start of this session, we had that wonderful video that explained better than we could hidden disability. The trick is to remember to caption it. If we're putting an image on there, let's get some alt tags on there. So there's some really basic but crucial steps. And that leads me to really measuring your website against accepted standards. So most aim for WCAG 2.1 AA compliance. There's tools out there that allow you to do that. And there's really no shortcut to a well-built, accessible website. Again, thinking about removing friction, providing more accessible content, you can put a reasonable adjustment on your website, like the Recite Me toolbar, that's going to allow for different options for the user to access that information. And ultimately, tip 3, and I hope this sort of carries right the way through all of the previous tips, it's joining the dots. I think it's been really good today where we've heard about top-down, bottom-up, looking at the culture. I've taken a slightly different view and said it's a bit like, I suppose joining the dots a bit like getting your inside ready for the outside world. And I think it was Richard Branson that said, if you look after your colleagues will look after your customers. There's no point in making your online experience fantastic if it doesn't translate to bricks and mortar in person. And so tip 3 is joining that dot. If it's worth investing in, it's worth making sure that that culture of inclusivity, which sounds really fuzzy when you start talking about it, but it's really simple to start on that journey and really bed that in from hiring onwards. So make it into your careers process, access that wider talent pool, bake it into your learning management systems, and then you'll watch as your organization organically benefits from that diversity of perspective, the skills and experience that they take, and the care that they'll apply to your customers over time.
I couldn't agree more, and you know, I think, you know, your three tips in terms of, you know, thinking to find the frictions, removing the frictions, act on it, and then, you know, and then continuously assessing your you against the standards and compliance and going beyond. You know, from my point of view, you know, meeting compliance is one thing, but take it the next step up and, you know, continuously develop, you know, and ultimately everyone benefits.
Absolutely.
Everyone benefits.
We often talk about accessibility being a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely.
And it risks being such a true statement that it gets overused, but it has genuine meaning at Recite. Equally, I think the idea that what happens online can also bleed into offline, and having that comprehensive link between the two is just so vital, so vital.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Darren. I think that was really, really insightful and informative. So I'd like to invite Hugo from Eastlight for a chat. Hi, Hugo.
Hi, Charlene. How are you doing?
No, really, really good. So here you have introduced a neurodiverse recruitment program.
Yes, we
have.
have.
Well done. Congratulations on that. So what has been the impact so far in staff?
Yeah, if I could take you back a little bit, I think it's important to get kind of where this really started from. Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, we held conversations with our staff at Eastlight around the protected characteristics and around what we wanted to focus on. And disability was really key, something that staff really believed in. It's something that our board massively believe in as well, in terms of making our services and environment as accessible as possible. So from those conversations, we really sort of developed a strategy and sort of how we wanted to move forward. And part of that included introducing a reverse mentoring program to the organisation, which we call Just Being You. And that basically worked where we had the leadership team being reverse mentored by someone with a protected characteristic. And one of the protected characteristics was disability. And it was really inspiring, actually, just to see some of the conversations that had happened and some of the changes that we could make. And that kind of just naturally led on to a conversation happening in the organisation around disability, around hidden disabilities and sort of neurodiversity in general, and how we could actually better support people inside the organisation, but also our customers as well. So I then started a Lunch and Learn programme this year, which has been really successful. We've held sessions over so many different topics. We've been encouraging staff to blog as well whilst these have been going on. But one of the sessions in particular, we had Alex Manners attend, and he did a session with us around sort of hidden disabilities and neurodiversity, and Asperger's in particular. And it was really, really interesting. And we had a fantastic engaging discussion amongst staff at the end of it, where one staff member approached me because they did some work with a disability charity, which focused sort of predominantly on neurodiversity, sort of more generally. And I wanted to find out more. I wanted the organisation to do more to help. It wasn't a charity that was local to us at the time, and you might be able to tell from our meetings, Charlie, and everything, but at Eastlight we work in a remote fashion, so not everyone's in the office all the time. It's great because we can, recruit from sort of further afield, but it does mean there's local links that you organically get in an organisation you can't always act upon. But I love the idea of us doing something around neurodiversity, maybe trying to put a recruitment programme together. So I reached out to Essex Cares, which is a local organisation sort of close to our sort of head office, which is in the Braintree area, and also the National Autistic Society to see what we could do. And basically what we've done is we've combined two different recruitment programmes together. One with a localised approach, which is Essex Cares. So we're looking at matching people to jobs at Eastlight. So we'll often get a flurry of CVs sent across from really fantastic people who, for whatever means, aren't necessarily able to get on the job ladder because the recruitment processes that other organisations follow aren't always as inclusive. And this really does provide that opportunity to have that conversation. And another thing that actually I picked up from the beginning that I found so interesting about that video is that when you talk about hidden disabilities more generally, they are just so different. I mean, it really is quite amazing. So the recruitment programme basically aims to bring people into the organisation. It's changed how we recruit as well. So it's looking at our role profiles, looking at the language we use, looking at what is really required from a role. What is the recruitment process for this role? Are we asking people to do a presentation? Why are we asking that? So many times organisations ask for these things and actually they don't need to be asked at all. But it doesn't just stop there. If the individual is successful and comes into Eastlight, it's a permanent job, by the way. This isn't so kind of like a short-term scheme or anything like that. They'll have a job coach who will work with them for the first year. And there's training as well that the manager and the teams go through to make them more understanding of sort of neurodiversity more generally. So the reason I wanted to start with the bit that I did, which is around kind of our journey, is because that's how I see it. And it's something that previously was discussed earlier, that actually it is a journey, it's not a destination. And, we've seen massive changes in our staff makeup because of this. So our disability disclosures went from 8.40 at the end of last year to 11.40 this year. So we're seeing, and it's still under the national average. We know the national average is 15%, so we've still got a long way to go. But I do think it's stuff like this. It's the Purple 365 webinars as well. It's us being able to put this on for our staff to slowly change people's understanding inside the organisation of what hidden disabilities are. And, and it does translate to our customers. And our next steps, we're going to be holding engagement sessions with our customers, with people with disabilities in particular, to try and make our services more inclusive. And it's a really exciting time for us to really, to be a part of Eastlight and to be doing this. And it really has all stemmed going back to that Lunch and Learn by having those conversations with members of staff who are really keen and passionate about this. So if I was to give any organisations tips going away, it would certainly be to listen to your people and trust them to push stuff forward and come out with these ideas. Because when you have something organically created like that, it really is quite powerful when it gets going.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, we were speaking in an earlier session as well about, you know, yes, listening to your people is so fundamentally important, because once, you know, that buy-in is going to be extremely important in driving the agenda. But what Eastlight has done is listened to their people and has provided the leadership to make it happen. Because we also see organizations where the voice of the people are maybe not necessarily being heard, and then not being given the go ahead by the leadership to make it happen and to make the changes that are needed. And so it is, and we've gone back to this top down, bottom up. It has to be right through the business to see it happen.
Absolutely.
And I'm so delighted that has been, you know, from a lunch and learn right through to like literally a whole change program taking place, and you're already starting to see and reap the benefits of having a more diverse group of people working for you, and that will just continue to grow year on year as you continue. And you know, so well done. I think that's amazing. Thank you. Now I want to introduce Amy and Kathy from St. Cloud's University, based in Minnesota. Hello.
Hi, good morning from Minnesota.
Absolutely. So obviously you're a university. You have thousands of students in under your umbrella. So how do you go about supporting students with hidden impairments?
Yeah, I think I'd first like to say I'm Amy Knopf. And this is Kathy, just so people who don't know us every day.
The Amy and Kathy team.
The Amy and Kathy team. Yes. And I am a person with a hidden disability, and Kathy is a mother of a daughter with a hidden disability. And so this is part of our lived experience as well. And so I'm so happy for your question. I think, is it okay? You want me to start? And then Kathy's she's gonna conclude us. Yes. So on our campus, it's really interesting because, you know, 96% of our students receiving accommodations through student accessibility services have a hidden disability. And we have seen a shift, you know, especially over the last 10 years, of more students with hidden disabilities seeking services as compared to individuals with visible disabilities. And also among that group of population, the largest percent are those with mental health or emotional behavior disability. So I think it's really interesting. Our campus has been really focused on making a lot of cultural changes, and we're excited to tell you about some of those at the end. But first, just what has been focused on students. Our students, I had a student in my rehabilitation counseling program a couple years ago who was doing an internship with student accessibility services, and she wanted to build awareness among faculty because we find that's where the biggest barrier is for students. And so she came up with a panel called Beyond the Label Ambassador Program, and it was all students with hidden disabilities, and there were 4 or 5 of them that would go from class to class and just talk about their experiences with their classes, their faculty, and other students. And that has been very, very successful. And in fact, that student has graduated and is now the director of student accessibility services at a community college and has continued that Beyond the Label Ambassador Program. And so I'm really happy that that has also continued here. Another thing that Kathy and I, we wrote an innovation grant with several departments on campus, including IT, student accessibility services, and our online innovation programs, to put together an assistive technology lab where faculty, staff, students, and guests could come to this lab and try out different kinds of technology that might be helpful for them. So as all of you probably know, that students with disabilities, with hidden disabilities, are among the largest group who don't disclose or who may not seek out services. So even though 96% of the students that we serve have hidden disabilities, we know there's a lot larger number that are sitting in the classrooms who are not asking for services. So another focus that we have been trying to implement on our campus is universal design and learning. And so every year we do a series of workshops for staff and faculty technology for teaching and learning, and teaching them how to make their online courses more universally designed, so that maybe a student doesn't need to ask for an accommodation if you've designed your course in a way that you've eliminated those barriers. And so those are some of the things that we are doing on campus for students. But we've also been looking at not only our students, but how our campus impacts the community locally and globally. So I'll let Kathy talk about
some of the work that we're committed to.
Our center that we established. Yeah.
Right. So I'll start off by saying, Paul, I'm also on the Minneapolis Airport Commission Travel Advisory Board for people with disabilities, and we love the Sunshine Lanyard program. So we have implemented it at the Minneapolis Airport in Minnesota. Thank you for your leadership with that. For our Center for International Disability Advocacy and Diplomacy, we're really looking at increasing opportunities for training and development and professional development. And, Amy shared and highlighted some of the best practices that we have at St. Cloud State University, but we have a long ways to go. And as a mom who, our daughter had her mental health crisis while she was at St. Cloud State University as a student, and often that's that age period for young people when they have their first diagnosis, and really working with faculty on how to identify some of the mental health challenges that do emerge at that point in time, or what resources are available for students with disabilities. I think, within the global space, this is an area of discussion where we can have a lot more conversation. And so in working with Purple, we're just excited to expand our network. We do working with partners around the globe and are looking to establish more. So we invite people to reach out and connect on LinkedIn with both Dr. Knopf and I. And I've already tried to link in with the other panelists on here for LinkedIn, and are appreciative of the partnerships that will evolve through this, Shar.
And what Kathy said, can I make a comment? Because what she said made me think about something else we implemented on campus. We implemented a program called Navigate, where as a faculty member or a staff member, I can put a warning at any time in that says, this student was in my class and maybe they were exhibiting some concerns, and I can send it to our counseling and psychological services. I can send it to the medical doctor. I can send it to student accessibility services. I can even send it to the behavior intervention team. And so we have this online resource that will help us to help connect our students with the resources that they need if they're having some kind of crisis.
And all of us know this, and the conversation is far from over of the impact of COVID on our learners and the isolation that has happened. And so it's like Amy shared, knowing what those red flags are, and then taking action as faculty within our classrooms to get students the help that they need.
No, absolutely. And obviously, both you, Amy, and Kathy, you understand the space really, really well. This is, you're the bread and butter of of what you do. But what we know is that not everybody has that understanding, doesn't know the flags, doesn't see, those issues, and and being able to know what to do with it. Then, even if they have, seen a flag, well, what do I do with that information? And so from a business perspective, an organizational perspective, ensuring that staff, ensuring that colleagues understand the process that to go through in terms of raising it up the chain, or even having that sensitive conversation with the individual, so that they that they understand that you are there in a supportive and an understanding and empathetic a way as well. So I think everything that you've said is really, really important. Hidden disability, because they're not visible, it is that sensitivity that we have to approach around that, because we can't make assumptions. We really can't make assumptions, and that's not what this is all about. But we do have to provide the opportunity for people to share. Yeah, exactly. So I think and I love the program of Beyond the Label. I think that is something that organizations, hopefully, if they're listening today, maybe adapt and adopt that for your own business. Having individuals come and share their story and looking beyond the label of their diagnosis is definitely something I would highly recommend.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, intersected with all of us and what we're talking about too is self-advocacy skills. And how do we help the young people who are becoming young adults looking for beginning their careers, self-advocate for what their needs are is something all of us are seeking to build.
One of the things that I'm sorry, Charlene, one of the things that we're doing in our center that we're hoping will address a lot of the needs that we're really talking about. People need to be educated, and they need to have training consistently on, how to work with, how to interact with, how to provide resources for individuals with disabilities, and particularly those with hidden disabilities. And so in our center, we are creating digital badges that will be sort of like short time trainings for not only businesses or organizations, but also for other college campuses and other organizations. And hopefully those trainings will help to spread the education that we need.
No, absolutely. So thank you so much. I'm now going to take some time and speak with Maddie, who herself is at university as we speak, here in it's Bristol, if not right, Maddie? You're in Bristol University. Delighted for you to be joining us again, Maddie. Maddie has been involved in a number of our sessions looking at hidden disabilities, but from a young person's perspective as well. So, Maddie, can you maybe share some of the best adjustments from your perspective that organisations or as an employer have put in place that helped you manage your hidden disability?
I think predominantly one of the main major changes for me, and very much like accessibility in general, has very much been so I'm going into my final year of university now, but before this year I hadn't had any actual assistive technology or anything like that put into place. So very recently I've been able to finally get that put in place through my DSA. So that's the government disability allowance that you get as a student. So using that, I've been able to get a considerable amount of things that I didn't realize I needed either. A lot of the time, and a lot of the support that I've now been given, and how that has impacted me and my studying, has made such a phenomenal change in kind of even the last 2 weeks that I've had this assistive technology. And that in itself, and kind of having that accessible thing to kind of change the way that I process things and just to make things a little bit easier, that very much has had a significant impact on me and my understanding and just even my experience at university as a whole.
Absolutely. And do you have to seek that support yourself, Maddie, or was it, were you approached?
So when you first apply for student finance, so kind of whenever you're going to university, you go through this application process. And one of the main things, kind of the general tick boxes, is kind of, do you have a disability? So that obviously clicked yes on that box. And then you've kind of got the opportunity then to apply for this funding. So I had been able to apply for it over the last couple of years, but sometimes up until this year, very much so, I hadn't got the correct evidence, which was kind of very difficult to find. It was quite difficult when kind of going back to what Darren was talking about and how making things accessible, the ability to contact people, making that line of communication easy. That was one of the things that I found very difficult. I couldn't actively find what information do I need to give you in order to access these things that I need and that I can use to support myself. So kind of that general application, it's been there the whole time, but it was kind of only from this summer and speaking to a disability coordinator that then they kind of gave me, so this is exactly what you need, these are what you need to provide, which then meant that over the summer I could get everything that I needed and then embark on this new journey with all of this assistive technology and everything else that I've been given.
Yeah. And just then going back to, as you said, back to what Darren said, and it's removing that friction. So if there's ever, something that gets listened to today, is where are the frictions in your processes that makes it really difficult for individuals to access your information, access your products, your services, and is there a need for that level of difficulty and you know, what is the purpose and what, you know, why are there frictions there existing? And so it comes back down to that user experience and how to improve that. Thank you, Maddie. I think we do have a short video from another one of our ambassadors, Michelle Martin, who just unfortunately couldn't be here with us today, but she very kindly sent us a video to share.
So my name's Michelle, and I have, in 2017, I had my bowel removed. I've had 2 stomas, and now I've got something called a J pouch, which basically means that they've created an internal pouch using my small intestines. So I don't need to have a stoma anymore, but I do need access to accessible toilets. One of my biggest issues is using accessible toilets. In the past, I have been verbally abused for using them, because obviously physically, when I walk out the toilet, there doesn't look anything wrong with me. Why am I using it? And as a result of that, I now regularly avoid using accessible toilets. And there was one incident where I avoided using accessible toilets. I used the other toilets, and then I was verbally abused for taking too long in those toilets. So you kind of end up in a situation where you're not quite sure where to go or what to do. And I think the biggest issue is normally when I have to use an accessible toilet, it means that I've got a problem and that I'm not feeling very well. So I'm mostly at my most vulnerable at those moments. And so it's not really an opportunity for me to turn and say, I've got an invisible disability and explain it all, because I'm mostly quite stressed at that moment and I don't really want to go into the details. So I had my first surgery in 2017 and had my stoma. And throughout that, I have been really honest with my friends and family and work colleagues. I've always been honest and told them what's happened, what surgeries. And actually, the response you get is people are quite intrigued and want to know more. And so that is really positive. I'm also a trustee of the Red Lion Group, which is linked to St Mark's Hospital. And the idea of the group is a support network for people living with a J pouch. And the idea is that it's a chance to sit down and talk to people who've been through the process, who've been through all the operations, and you can have shared experiences. I'm very lucky to be here. So if I hadn't had the operation, I wouldn't be here today. So also there's that part of me that thinks, well, it doesn't really matter what other people think, because I'm lucky to be here. And if I can share what I've been through, it might help somebody else. It's important to explain why you are behaving in a certain way. So, for example, I went to the Shakespeare Globe, and for anyone that's been there will know that once you're in a play, you can't leave because everyone's so tightly packed in, you'll disturb the whole play. So I'd already booked an aisle seat, but I knew the play was 3.5 hours, and I was very worried about not being able to get out. So I approached somebody and said, I've had my bowel removed. I might need to leave and then come back in again. Is that okay? And they said, that's absolutely fine. And I think it's about making sure people are aware why you want to behave in a certain way and what you need. And actually, if you do tell them what you need, the majority of the time they're absolutely fine and more than willing to help you. And that makes going out, doing things a more enjoyable experience. It is really important to have these conferences and to have these conversations. I know from my own personal experiences, by sharing what I've been through, I find that people come up to me and talk to me about their aunt, their uncle, their brother that has got the condition. And we're all quite open about it where I work and amongst my friends. And if we can spread that, that will really benefit people. So for someone like me, being able to use a toilet when I really need to, and being able to access the services you need. If we can have these conversations now, it saves you feeling uncomfortable later on and having conversations that maybe when you're at crisis point or you really need help and you don't have the time to have those conversations, people are already aware and already and willing to help you.
So obviously that's the words from Michelle, who couldn't be here today. And I think, you know, her experience really does bring to life everything that we're talking about here today. So I want to now go to Hugo. I'm going to pick on you a little bit with this question that's just sort of comes to mind. You know, you've shared about the neurodiversity program bringing in and attracting more talent into the business, but with the existing employee base, how do we think we can build the confidence so that there's more, your existing employee base are more comfortable to disclose, or any business? How can we build the confidence for people to disclose?
It's a really tricky thing, because fundamentally it comes from trust. And from my experience, the best way to do that is have someone from a senior position talk about it from their own lived experience. If you've got a senior leader in your organisation, for example, who has a hidden disability, and you know from your relationship with them that's quite open talking about it, tap into that, because that's a really vital resource. Because at the end of the day, these people are leaders in the organisation. They're looked up to by people. And if they see someone from a senior position coming out and disclosing and talking about it openly, it can really create a good discussion internally and start to sort of shift that culture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, leaders sharing, but also colleagues sharing, sharing their own story. And I think, you know, by creating those staff networks is another fantastic way, so that there's that feeling of belonging, and that they're not alone, and that there is others who are having similar experiences to you. And that may then, you know, encourage the sharing of that. I'm going to go now maybe to Darren. I'm going to just bounce around here and see, get other people's input. Darren, what would be your top tip for supporting somebody with a hidden disability?
Well, I have a family member that has a hidden disability. And so patience is probably the first thing that comes to mind. I come from the world of sales, where, and I'm of an age where it wasn't always the softest environment to find yourself in, trying to chart a career. And so patience is kind of the one trick I haven't quite learned, but I'm always trying to. And so I think start with that. I think tying it to what Hugo said as well, I think trust and leadership and that visibility is really, really important. But I think it's also the environment that we put ourselves in every day can really make a huge impact. How it feels to have a hidden disability. I'm quite close to the relative I'm thinking of, and it feels really disorienting when it happens, when you have those moments like Michelle mentioned, where you don't know whether to say or not say, because the panic is taking over, the fear is taking over. And all you can really do at that point in time is let them know that there's no rush. It's patience that I keep reaching back to, as being, as long as the environment is a patient one, it's not full of stimulus, it's not full of pressure, then I think, yeah, that's what comes to mind as a top tip, I suppose.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Patience. We were taught one time, we were having a training based around autism, and it was the 6-second rule. So always allow 6 seconds when you're engaging with somebody with autism. So, you know, to give them that time to process the information and formulate their answer and response, you know, to you. And don't be trying to jump in and answer for them. So yeah, patience is absolutely key. Sorry. I am going to now ask Amy and Kathy, whilst I try not to choke. Mm-hmm. What practice have you seen recently which has made you smile? So around disability inclusion, acceptance around hidden disabilities, what has actually made you smile, appreciate?
Oh, I think that what has for me is our work that we do with the Zero Project. And in fact, we were just talking about it this morning. When we think about getting together with our partners from around the globe at the Zero Project in Vienna, where we feel like we're really making a difference, for me, that makes me smile on the outside and the inside. And so I don't know about Kathy.
Well, for me, it's working with the colleagues that we have who are deaf, that we hired a colleague, Sherry Rademacher is her name, to work on some of our projects focused specifically on deaf students internationally, and then working with a colleague from China who is deaf and living into our mission about nothing about us without us. And so having a seat at the table and having conversations that really give voice to their perspective and ensuring that we have a an environment that is respected of all their needs that we have. So yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah, well, thank you. And yeah, the Zero Project is amazing. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, please just go and look it up, because it's the work that they do is fantastic. I'm going to go to you now, Maddie, back to you for your final thoughts, and to ask, what would be your key message to people watching here today and wondering what they should be doing?
I've kind of got a couple.
Okay.
But I think one of the main ones, especially, is kind of, even just in this context, I can only provide my opinion. In order to get the kind of eclectic thing that you need to be able to properly understand the ins and outs of being accessible, is to speak to anybody, because everyone's needs are different, and recognizing that each person that you meet, what they're going to need is going to be completely different from the other. And it kind of goes back to what Darren was saying about the journey of accessibility and it not being a destination, because realistically, I don't think that there truly will be a complete destination for anything with accessibility, because the world, especially of disability and just in general in society, is ever changing. And that in itself brings new challenges and new boundaries. And that kind of recognizing these challenges, speaking to the people that have these challenges, and then working with them with their voice in the room and allowing them that way in to provide their insight, and kind of not giving what you think the person with the condition needs, and allowing them to say what they need, and then recognizing that, taking it into account, and then driving forward change.
Amazing. Thank you, Maddie. And I've made a note, and it was something that we spoke about here actually in the office recently, and it basically summarized exactly what you've just said perfectly. You ask the question, so how can I help? Then you listen, because everybody's requirements will be different. Listen, and then act. Make it happen, implement it, and meet their needs. And I think that exactly is what we need to do, regardless of the disability, regardless of the individual. We all have different needs, and we should respect that, absolutely. And I think I'm just going to go back now to the final question, back to Paul, as the founder of Hidden Disabilities. Back to you, Paul. What would be then for your final message to everyone listening here today?
Well, I think it's similar to what Maddie said. Maddie said there. The people I know with hidden disabilities, they certainly don't want our sympathies, but what they do want is they want some understanding. So really, my message would be, certainly from a sunflower perspective, if you see someone who wears the sunflower, recognise they've chosen to demonstrate they have a condition, and give that person just some understanding. And then again, as Matt said, it is just recognising we're all individuals. Whilst we're all certainly all equal, we're certainly not the same. So treat each person as an individual. Treat each person sensitively, and as I think the key takeaway I'm going to take from this is ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that brings us nicely to the end of the session. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope that everybody has really found the session informative and engaging. Hidden disabilities really do need to be taken into consideration by businesses when looking to deliver good customer experiences for all customers. Businesses really need to support their staff to better understand the challenges and the barriers that customers with hidden impairments face. And remember, as we've seen from the video earlier, and we've been talking about this throughout the session, just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. So don't make assumptions that you know what that individual needs. It's ask the question, listen to your answer, and then act. So thank you everyone for your time and your contribution today. I look forward to welcoming you on to the next session, which will be hosted by Mike, and we will be looking at disability inclusive marketing and communications, and that starts at 7 p.m. UK time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time.